Welcome everybody to tonight's Resound workshop. We are on the Black American portion of the 4-video set. And tonight we have Katie Miller with us. I'll let her do her introduction and looking forward to the information she'll share both from the series, but also new material for us. So go ahead, Katie.
Awesome. Good evening, guys. I'm glad to see some people here this evening after a crazy day in Wisconsin. I need just a second here there we go. I am Katie Miller, and I currently teach kindergarten through 5th grade music. I've been kind of doing this across multiple states and in a few districts over the last 18 years. Most recently, I've been working in the Milwaukee area, which is kind of how I got involved in the Resound project. To start with, I actually responded to an email to attend a listening session that was being held in Milwaukee. And I could really relate with the other educators there who were talking about really needing kind of new resources that were current, authentic, and culturally diverse to really go along with kind of the more traditional folk repertoire that I would normally use within my elementary music classroom. So it's something I've really struggled with in the past. And I really wanted to do better with for the students that come into my classroom. So from there, I kind of followed the project along through to curriculum development and now sharing it with educators like you, thanks to the wonderful people at WSMA and PBS. I would love to get to know a little bit about you guys tonight. I know we're kind of a small crew, given that it is an interesting evening and day in Wisconsin. So I thought maybe we could liven it up since it is Tuesday, and it is also National Margarita Day, in case you weren't aware, by playing a little game of would you rather. So as we get going here, if you wouldn't mind, we are going to kind of use this format. So if you could introduce yourself, give us your name, the subject that you teach, where you are coming from, or joining us from this evening, and also answer the would you rather question. So there'll be 2 options. You can either just answer the question or give us kind of your reasoning behind that. And just for the sake of not talking over one another, I just popped kind of an order in the chat for us to start with. So I am going to flip over to the first question. And Jake, if you wouldn't mind starting us out kind of with introducing yourself and then letting us know, would you rather win the lottery or have superpowers?
All right. So my name is Jake Van Dyke. I teach middle school and high school band in Mishicot, Wisconsin, which is about 10-15 minutes north of Manitowoc. Our district was closed today, but I live in the Green Bay area where schools were still in session and the roads were still bad, but you know, it was all right. I got to stay home and catch up on grading. Would I rather win the lottery or have superpowers? I'd have to go with have superpowers. I feel like I could accomplish a lot with that, and I could maybe earn some money along the side.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, my name is Kelsey Deuce, and I teach 1st through 4th grade general music. I am in Platteville, Wisconsin. We are right by the Iowa-Illinois border. And I live right where I teach. I live 5 minutes from school, and we were closed today. However, we were the last school to close. Everyone else closed last night, and I was a little nervous the ice storm wouldn't come and we would be the only ones going to school today. But alas, we called it at 5:30 this morning. So I would rather win the lottery. I sometimes tell my students, I'm like, sometimes I don't know if I want to know what you're thinking. Not sure what you would think of me.
Okay, I'm Kathy Bartley, and I am a retired music teacher. I taught early childhood and kindergarten through 6th grade general music for many years in a small town outside of Madison called Wanakee, Wisconsin. And I became involved in this project a couple of years ago, and I'm just really anxious to learn. Every time I talk to Katie, I learn something new. So that's one of my reasons for being here. And retirement, I am going to share with you that snow days still give me kind of a sense of excitement and joy, even though I don't have to drive to school. It's like when it comes across the television, I'm going, there's that same feel of, oh my gosh, it's a special day. So there you go. I would rather have superpowers than win the lottery. I would have a whole lot of things that I would like to do, never have to seem to have enough time to do them in. So if I could control time and resources, I would be thrilled. I just think that would be a good thing to do.
I am Darren Mink. I work at Wisconsin School Music Association, former educator generally and music education. And hello, Jake in Mishicot, because I was also in Manitowoc, so familiar stomping grounds there. I'm part of the project as editor, curriculum controller, as it were, and then I'm liaison between WSMA and PBS Wisconsin. So really enjoy that collaboration and partnership that we have. I don't know which one it is, but right now I have credit card debt, and I bought a house a year ago and a 30-year loan for a 55-year-old. Might not work out so well in retirement. So lottery would be just fine with me. Thank you.
Awesome. And I am Katie. I teach K through 5 general music, and I live in Mequon. So I likewise was really excited when school was called off this morning, because I travel 34 miles to get to my building in Waukesha. And I would rather win the lottery. As much as I love teaching music and what I do, I would love to do that on a basis that was a little bit more, maybe not daily. So here is our next question. I just have 2 more would you rather. So this time, would you rather have a dance party with Usher or a karaoke party with Adele? Jake, you want to start us out again?
Sure can. Yeah, I think I'd
Thank you.
I'd rather karaoke with Adele. I'm not very much of a good vocalist myself. However, I think it'd be kind of fun to sing some Meatloaf along with Adele. So
I would definitely be having a karaoke party with Adele.
I'm going to jump on that bandwagon, and I'm going to go with the karaoke party with Adele. I just love her music, and I could sing with her. It'd be such an honor.
Yep, I'll admit it. I have Adele on in my car usually. So yep, for sure.
All right, then I'll go Usher, as to not leave him out. All right, we got one more question then. Would you rather have a week of lesson plans written for you or an extra personal day, but you have to write your own plans?
it's an extra personal day, hands down. Any time to spend more time with my kid or with my wife is a win for me. I'll write lesson plans for the future indefinitely if I could do that.
I would definitely take the extra personal day. I'm such a control freak. I probably would have to rewrite the lesson plans, and it wouldn't save me that much time.
I take the personal day as well. I would rather write my own stuff than do something that was, always exactly from someone else. In fact, I agree with you. I probably rewrite things to fit the students that I had. And so the personal day would be wonderful.
I had a personal day today. We could work remotely, so I worked some and I drank my coffee some, and I shoveled and threw salt around. So yeah, my personal day was great. And I have to admit it, I do miss writing lesson plans because the creativity, but I don't miss the daily grind of writing lesson plans. Yeah.
Mm. Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for participating. I kind of believe that no matter which of these you kind of chose, that Resound kind of works out because it does kind of have those support materials to help you with teaching. And kind of with that, let's meet Sister Strings, who is the group from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who represents the Black American culture within this project.
They try to put us under, but when that ain't work, better believe it was the muscle. But see, I can't be sold. I'm just trying to give up. They ain't gonna stop my flow. Just gonna let it blow. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
So hopefully at this point, you have gotten an opportunity to take a look at the educator engagement guide. If you didn't, I did just place the link in the chat that you can open up. But this performance of by Sister Strings is actually the basis for the 3 outcomes that were derived from the CMP model. So the effective outcome that from this performance would be that students would be able to relate to and explore their own experiences of letting go of something in their lives to make decisions about how they can make change in their own lives. The knowledge outcome would be that students would be able to compare and contrast different types of articulations. And then within the engagement guide, there are the strategies and assessments, all kinds of different things you could do to help students reach that outcome. And kind of we're going to start today is with the skill outcome, which is that students would be able to recognize, create, and perform ostinati. So kind of how I have things set up for our workshop today is that I'm going to kind of mimic the gradual release model if you're familiar with that at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to begin by showing you kind of how I utilize this engagement guide within my own classroom. And then we're going to look forward to developing some of our own ideas together as a group that's here this evening, and then head out hopefully with some things that you can use within your own classroom from here this evening. So kind of the I do, then we do together, and then you are able to do within your own classroom. So although I know not all of us are elementary music teachers, I hope that you can kind of stick with me as I just quickly walk through what I did within my classroom, because I think you're going to easily be able to see how the strategies and assessments can be adapted to the skill level of your students. But really all of the lessons and strategies within the educator engagement guide are really developed to target kind of those middle level kiddos in any music setting. So whether you're going a little bit easier or choosing a little bit harder, you can kind of adapt that to your own situation. So just keep that in mind as I kind of roll through the next couple of slides. In my situation, I just kind of a little background information. I have taught in the school district of Waukesha for the last 7 years. This is my 7th year, but this is the first year that I've been in my current building. So I was transferred within the district last year. So when I came in September with this educator engagement guide, I did not know the 5th graders that I was working with, which is always kind of an interesting thing if you've never experienced that before. So I really wanted to make sure that I met this outcome, but along with being able to make sure that students could recognize, create, and perform ostinati, I also wanted to see kind of what background knowledge students had with all of the interruptions to learning with in-person, virtual, hybrid, and all of the other things that happen within their elementary career. I just need to know some information about them as far as where they were with district standards, but also themselves as learners. So these are kind of the strategies that I picked out of the whole list of them within the guide that would help me get my students to meet the goal without knowing much background information about them. So within my classroom, I started really the same way that I started with you guys today, with just viewing the performance of Goodbye. And I promise you that this photo is not staged. The students really did sit through the entire performance video, just this still and quiet. I don't know if it is the engaging qualities of Shanti and Monique, or if it is the beautiful videography and skills of the colleagues at PBS, but the kids loved it, and that connection that they could feel right away to the things that the ladies were talking about, and making that connection to also being from Milwaukee and from Wisconsin was gold to me as an educator. From there, we started to talk about what is an ostinato and where did it appear within their song. So I also wanted to give them some other songs that they could recognize this in. And to do that, and to find resources, I actually headed to the WSMA website. And you might have a chance later to kind of go around there, but underneath this For Teachers tab, you will see the Resound project. And there are some supplemental resources right in here. So as I was building lessons for students, you could either search through for what you're looking for, or you can see that you can filter. I'm just gonna go ahead and filter by culture since Black American comes up first in alphabetical order. And when I was looking for examples of Ostinati to share, you could see right here, there is a movement example. This is actually Around the World from Daft Punk. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So I pulled it right from this website and put it in the materials that I showed to students. I also visited the website from Black Violin and found a performance video that they had that also used the hip hop sounds that they use within their music and also demonstrated an ostinato. So I didn't have to go looking for resources other places because there is already a collection of these supplemental options on the WSMA website. So here is an example of that. This is the example from the Black Violin website. The students love this example because they just couldn't get over the fact that it kept going when he started to do something else. Here then is the movement ostinato, which is all kinds of conversation starters, but so obviously students can see lots of different examples of ostinati within the movement. You know, typically I probably would just grabbed other things. Previously, this was an example I used a lot with students. I also like to pull in some things. Unfortunately, we're at the point where kids only really know ABBA from Mamma Mia, but they do recognize that movie. Even pulling in some examples of songs that they might recognize to be able to give them some examples of what that would look like. Since I am an elementary music teacher, the next logical step for us is to put that into movement. And we worked on a song from the Caribbean called Four White Horses. When Darren shares out the materials, I did put the link in the slides. If you don't know this song, that you can check it out. But it is a hands clapping game that the kids are repeating a movement pattern. This is a trickier one, probably better for older elementary, middle school students, because it does require them for one part of the pattern to go up for to hit a partner's hands, and then the other part of the pattern to go down. But once they were able to experience ostinati in movement, now I'm kind of ready to assess their knowledge of that. And to do that, students were going to create their own ostinato. I kind of took this idea from another music educator. Her name is Katie Traxler. She works out of New York State. but my students just took the letters in their name to be able to notate a 4-beat rhythm pattern. I really didn't give them any more stipulations than that because, again, I was trying to figure out what they knew, what note values were they comfortable with, and you can see it kind of was arranged for students. But once they were able to create this 4-beat pattern, then I just did a quick mini lesson about complementary rhythms and allowed them to kind of travel around the room and do some experimenting. Who are some other kids in the room that would have a complementary pattern to their own, so that we can start to build some groups and create some songs from their name ostinatos. In the school district of Waukesha, we are one-to-one student devices. So I opted to put this onto Smart Notebook just for the ease of notation and being able to read what the students have notated. But obviously you could easily do this with paper or pencil, but I wanted the students to take their individual name ostinato and to be able to line it up so that they could see how the beats would fall, so that they were able to put it together and create a quartet with each of their name ostinati. And their performance was their final assessment. So being that this is 5th grade, the examples I brought to you today is one group of all gentlemen. So here's what their final product sounded like. And then, of course, the group of ladies. So all of those classroom activities were really derived from that skill outcome, and all based off of this original performance of Sister Strings and strategies and assessments taken directly from that educator engagement guide. So I'm not sure if there are any questions or things that I can answer at this point about what I've shown from my classroom before we kind of head into working together on what we want to do next.
So all of those things were taken right out of the engagement guide. It was putting it together, putting it with your students, what resources you had.
Correct. Really, the only thing that wasn't specifically in the engagement guide was notating the names for creating the ostinati. That was just what I picked for them to notate, just to give them some guidelines rather than just saying create a 4-beat pattern. But everything else came directly out of it. And I can kind of pop back here a second, the way I have this set up. Oh, there's my dictionary. Sorry, the videos, it's a pain sometimes. So there's all of the strategies that I pulled from. So students will investigate popular songs with strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is showing them that around the world video. And then strategy number 4 was introducing a hands clapping game. I just picked out 4 white horses because it was a similar culture, and worked as far as difficulty level with the grade level I was working with. And then assessment number 2 in that engagement guide was creating an ostinato and accompanying on classroom instruments. So all of those were written. This comes directly from that guide. Awesome. So as far as the we do, I didn't really want to determine what we were going to work on. I was hoping that we together could kind of determine a focused topic that we could dig into, and then be able to bring back together what we find. So that was the skill outcome. We could dig farther into the effective outcome, which was students will relate and explore their own experiences with letting go of something in their own lives so that they can make decisions on how to make changes in their lives. Or we could dig deeper into the knowledge outcome, which was being able to compare and contrast different types of articulations. Or if there's other ideas, we are more than welcome to dig into other topics that have kind of come up or have crossed your mind in the last half an hour or so. If you want to kind of toss some ideas out in the chat or unmute yourself, what would be most helpful, or what do you want to dig into a little bit more that we can work on together?
How about we try and work on the affective one, Katie?
Sure, let's do it. So kind of what I was thinking, if we work on that, is we could kind of split up and check out some of the additional places and additional things that are out there to start gathering things to build a lesson. So your first choice would be heading to the Resound website to take a look at some of those other additional resources. For instance, the interview video. The second option would be to head to the WSMA website to be able to locate some supplemental resources that would help us meet that outcome. And then the third option would be to head to the PBS Learning Media website to try to find some extension ideas. That website is a collection of all of the different resources and projects from PBS stations and groups across the country. So I will pop in the chat kind of just a collaborative document that we can work off of. Feel free, I started it for us, but if you need to add additional slides or need more space to work, feel free to do that. And then I will also pop in those 3 options of places that you could go to start digging for things that would help us to start to build and develop a lesson on that outcome. And I'll also pop the outcome in there in case you just want to be able to see that. What I was hoping was that we would be able to just take some time on our own to be able to go and dig. And then also, if you need a chance to be able to take a break and take care of some things that are going on at home, or just take care of yourself, that we would meet back here maybe around 7:35. And we could kind of share what we found and go from there. What are other questions and comments and things that we found, or kind of close up for the evening? Does that make sense to everybody?
So we can go to each one of those resources, find whatever we can get, and put it in the document you shared with us, correct?
Correct.
Perfect.
Awesome. Then we'll meet back here. We'll just say like 7:35.
All righty.
And I'll be around if you guys need anything or have any questions along the way. Awesome. So as you are finishing up some final notes or kind of coming back, I am hoping that we can just share out some of the things that you found as we were working to be able to kind of collaboratively pull some things together that could help us meet that effective outcome of students relating to or exploring their own experiences with letting go, kind of like Shanti and Monique of Sister Strings talked about. So is there somebody who kind of wanted to go first and share with us some things that they found or where they headed?
I can start. I didn't get a lot of information down because I just got busy reading and taking things in and then getting distracted by other awesome things that I found. But I looked on the WSMA supplemental resources and I thought those were great. The two things that I put in there was a PBS video about Marian Anderson's performance at Lincoln Memorial, how she wasn't allowed to perform indoors at the Constitution Hall. So she did the outdoor concert instead. I thought that would be a really interesting conversation to have with students. And then the other one I found was it was a list of 10 Black composers and just had like a paragraph about them and then a video that went with it that I found to be very interesting, that I thought students could make connections with. So that is all that I had.
I have to jump in, Kelsey, and just ask a question. So when you were looking through those resources, did your mind just start going all different directions like mine does? There's just so much there.
Yes. And then I would get back and I'd think, okay, what am I supposed to be looking at? And then you'd have to go back and look. It's just a lot of information.
And I'm impressed too with any of those resources fit in with literature, language, arts, science, math. There's just so many connections that it really provides music educators with opportunities to connect across curriculum, to integrate, to talk to other teachers about. Just really great to hear that you found some good things there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did anybody else want to kind of share what they found as they were digging around?
I can talk next. I started looking at the affective because that was always the most difficult one for me to teach of any song. I can teach notes and rhythms. I can teach ostinatos, language and the skill and knowledge were always easiest for me. So I looked through the affective and then I looked through the site itself and I thought a lot of the affective things that we were looking for were embedded in the quotes on the front page of Sister Strings. For example, Monique says, I always feel like there's more to dig into when we're trying to be vulnerable with our music. And it's like you in the song and you're sharing your heart with everyone else, which actually was the heart of this piece of Goodbye. And I think that's an important thing to connect with kids, that songs are about digging into yourself and revealing some things about yourself. And that went with a lot of the strategies that were listed there for the affective about how would it feel if you had to say goodbye to your friend? What if you had to say goodbye to a difficult task that you were working on? So I just want to encourage people to look at those quotes on the very first, the cover, the very first page of the websites there, and for all of the others as well, but in particular for Sister Strings. And then I looked through the interview again a little bit, looking for affective things that they said. And one of them was, how did it feel to be in a classical orchestra where you were the only Black people there? And there's quotes in that interview that I think are worth reviewing. So I've seen the interview a lot. So every time I read it or listen to it, I find something else. So that was great. The third thing that I have two more things. The third one is when I started working on this project, I didn't realize that PBS had that much educational stuff outside of what we were actually working on. I was like, oh, we're going to do this. This is going to be great. But I found for this particular one, if you haven't seen the PBS Wisconsin Education the biographies. There's one of Val Phillips, which talks about being the only one doing something and going out there in the legislative world and being the first lawyer in Wisconsin, first Black lawyer in Wisconsin. And they're all geared for students, which I don't think a lot of biographies are. And so what I like about PBS is their artistry with their presentation, whether it's video or whether it's, they have some that are cartoon type things, but the one on Val Phillips is really quite outstanding. It would connect with this particular thing. And there's one also that I didn't make it all the way through about Joshua Glover, who came through Wisconsin as a slave and went to Canada and his experiences. So there's a lot of background information we can use from that. The last thing I wanted to say was I looked through the educational guide and I kind of started making a checklist of things that there's something for everyone there. There's visual stuff, there's auditory stuff, there's kinesthetic stuff, and all, and you know, they always want you to look for those things. We make in this particular thing that Katie wrote and did all the curriculum work on, there's creating, there's listening, there's moving, there's discussing, there's visual stuff. And so when you're looking at trying to make it through all the standards, they're all there. They're all there, and you can pick and choose whatever you want. So I just thought those were some highlights that as I was browsing through came to mind.
I feel like Kathy, you and I were kind of doing the same thing, because when it comes to that effective outcome, not being that culture bearer myself in many of the cultures that are represented within Resound, but particularly Black American that we're talking about today, finding those videos and people who are those culture bearers to start the conversation, it helps me out to be able to take their words and start those conversations with kids. So I was doing the same thing on PBS Learning Media, like typing in like phrases that might help. So I did stick the link into Val Phillips, because I think that's a great link, especially to the 4th grade curriculum when they're talking about Wisconsin and the biographies of making those connections. Yeah, important conversations to have with just starting with the words. I love that idea, and helps even if you can't find that media source for it.
Well, I'll jump in, and I did really a focus on upper grades. So how can you use Resound with grades 9 through 12? So they can handle a lot more and have more open discussions depending on where they are, but most of the time they can. So in my notes, I added, focused on the words, the muzzling, how people get muzzled, and that creates a different direction in people's or culture's lives, and then they change for the better. And how does that happen? So I really went to all different sections from the Resound, comparing it with Ma Vu's idea and family and her cultural tradition that it's being muzzled and lost. Native American in the PBS Learning Media. And I threw some links in there in your shared document because of that. So really Resound can be used for anybody, anything. And if you really look at the extensions in the Resound curriculum, they are both for those who need more help and those who are advanced. So again, we can really use these at any level. So I put some resources in there that I thought would be very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Darren. Well, I really appreciate all of you guys working hard to get that collaborative planning document. And I'll kind of clean it up a little bit so it's easier to read and use, because that's kind of the next step, right? Is to take it and use these within your classroom, whatever bits or pieces you can. Darren, did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we kind of closed up for the evening? I know we're a little bit early on time, but.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have more Resound workshops coming up. Next is the Hmong American workshop, and that's in March 10th, I believe it is. And then following right after that is the Native American workshop. And then I'll be following it up in early April with a workshop where I'll go through some of these WSMA resources as well as PBS learning media resources and pulling those together, connecting to the Resound. So great workshops coming up. I'll put the link in the chat and also share it with you in a follow-up email as to what's being offered when and what are some of those resources. The other news I wanted to share, if you haven't heard it yet, is Resound is moving forward. We received a national award for these educator resources and the connections to PBS Wisconsin. And we're really thrilled with that. But we're also thrilled that because of that excitement, we are adding 2 more videos for sure. And we're even researching a possibility of 4. And right now we are in the work of choosing what categories, what cultures, what types of performances we'll have. And it's going to move fairly quickly so that by October, we'll be able to share you details of who it is and show you some sample clips and be able to share more of those resources. So we're really super excited about that. So stay tuned, follow the Resound page on WSMA, and you'll be up to date on what's going on. And then finally, if you've registered for this workshop, you will be receiving posters in the mail, 1 for each one of the performers. And I gave you 2 sets. So those should be coming in the mail soon. If you don't receive that, please just let me know. And then I'll send another set out to you. There's 2 sets, 1 for you and maybe 1 for a student who really could appreciate that poster in their home, or for you to share with another educator. And of course, future workshops have opening for people to register as well. So hopefully you can join us then.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thanks again for everybody who was able to come on this cold and icy or snowy evening.